Operations Committee doing an oversight on the lost wages program, lost wages assistance program. And this morning, our presenter will be Mr. Patrick Guerrero, Governor's Authorized Representative. Before we move into the adoption of the agenda, I do want to state for the record that we have a sufficient number of members for the committee that establishes a quorum. We only need 3 members, so therefore we have a quorum to conduct this meeting this morning. Now, before the adoption of the agenda, without any objections from the members, I would like to have the administration of the oath with Mr. Patrick Guerrero. Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you. Ms. Blanco, can you please proceed to the oath? Mr. Patrick Guerrero, please step forward and raise your right hand.
Patrick Guerrero, do you solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. May I hear a motion for the adoption of the agenda this morning? It has been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Moving right along, item number 3, we are open for public comments. If anybody is in the gallery, please step forward to the podium and state your name. If you have any comments to submit to the committee, please do so. There's no one in the gallery right now for public comment, so that's officially closed. Let's move on to item number 4. Mr. Patrick Guerrero will be doing a presentation this morning. I did request for him to limit his presentation to about 10 or 15 minutes because there are a lot of questions that I want to ask, and I'm sure the members of this committee also want to ask Mr. Patrick Guerrero. So, Mr. Guerrero, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the SNILD JGO committee, Chairwoman Senator Edith Guerrero. My pleasure to be here this morning to give you guys updates and answer any questions you have in regards to the lost wages assistance program. So I'll get right into my slides here and give you an overview of background and some latest information on the administration of this program. So this lost wages assistance program, I'll go ahead to the next slide if you will. It's a program that Trump authorized FEMA to grant states and territories to make supplemental lost wages payments, including admin costs, with a 75-25, 75 federal share, 25% local share at the time of the initiation of this program. So the CNMI requested, next slide, CNMI requested assistance by applying for this program, this grant, and FEMA obligated then funds to the CNMI in September of 2020. Payments are to be made retroactively on a weekly basis, beginning with the week that ended on August 1st, 2020. Just a quick timeline of our application, and on September 10th, we submitted the application through FEMA. On that same day, we also submitted our request for a cost share waiver of that 25% local match. On September 16th, the CNMI's application was approved and initial funds were obligated. It wasn't until March 22nd of this year that our cost share waiver was approved. Next slide, the initial award, I guess, and only award to the CNMI in a total of $7,721,288. This award was based on estimates to provide that supplemental payment for a period of 3 weeks and to include some admin costs. The period of assistance, this program was available to all states and territories. Go ahead and hit, I guess, maybe the next slide so you can see. The period of assistance was for the weeks ending August 1st through December 27th of last year, 2020. The period of performance is 90, extended further 90 days after that December 27th date to allow for the grant closeout period. We did not make this program available due to a lack in local match funding. So we requested for an extension. We got our approval, if you recall from the 2 slides prior to this, that we got a cost share waiver on March 22nd. We only had a few days to give out the funds. That wasn't going to be enough time, so we requested an extension, and it was granted for the maximum 6 months. So we have through up to September 27 of this year to make all payments and close out the grant. Next slide. Today I provided you a copy of the state administrative plan, which spells out everything that's required of the program. And just some key points of the state admin plan is that the state administrative agency is the CNMI Department of Labor. Their responsibility includes to determine eligibility of individuals, provide the benefits, prepare and submit financial reports that are required on a weekly or quarterly basis, and then of course close out the grant. I was invited, called in today as the governor's authorized representative, as this funding was made available through FEMA. However, I also invited Secretary of Labor, Ms. Vicky Benavente. In the event you have some questions from her, she'll be willing to come up as well. I'll try my best to answer all your questions, but some program details might be best answered by her or her team. So the Lost Wages Assistance Program provides eligible individuals a $300 payment per week. So we got approved for the 3 weeks ending August 1st, 8, and 15. Eligible individuals, there's a few ways to qualify. If you read the state admin plan between pages 4 and 5, the CNMI did not participate in some of these other programs, so the best fit, or maybe the only one that qualified and made individuals eligible, was the PUA program, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. And that's how we qualified individuals to receive the $300 payment per week. You had to have qualified, or you had to have received at least $100 per week of benefits from the PUA program and do a self-certification, just as the PUA program also required. Individuals must self-certify that they were unemployed at the time, partially unemployed, or unable or unavailable to work due to disruptions caused by COVID-19. To date, next slide, as of last Thursday, a total of $5,128,320 has been paid to 6,008 individuals. 3 batches of payments were made on April 15, April 20, and April 28. Those payments were made somewhat within 30 days of us receiving our request for extension. The next slide, I just put a quick table up there. Payments were made to the 6,008 individuals, whether through a wire transfer, bank ACH transaction, or paper check issue. And you can see there I broke it down into um, the various weeks. Some claimants only were eligible for 1 week, and it could have been any of those 3 weeks, ending on 8/1, 8/8, or 8/15. Some individuals qualified for 2 weeks worth of payments, so various combinations of 8/1 and 8/8, or 8/1 and 8/15, or the last 2 weeks, 8/8 and 8/15. The bulk, 5,264 individuals received for the full 3 weeks, ending 8/1, 8/8, and 8/15, for a total of 6,008. Program outlook now and closeout. These are sort of my deadlines that I am giving the Department of Labor as the administrative agency to complete. As I mentioned, we have up to September 27 to close this grant. Within the next 30 days, I would like to see that the Department of Labor verify and provide payments to any remaining eligible individuals. And based on conversation and meetings that I've had with them in the last week, it's a very small number. Between 150 and 200 individuals are still pending payments. We're still verifying that they are eligible. By 60 days from now, I would like to see that we entertain and any appeals that might be made by any claimants. They may be claiming that they are eligible and have not been paid, and we've deemed them ineligible. I would like for that to close out in the next 60 days. Also, by this date, I would like the Department of Labor to complete all internal audits of all payments, and 30 days from that date, on August 27, make sure that the CNMI recovers, if any, funds that may have been paid to ineligible individuals. And of course, we have a deadline with our grantor, FEMA, to close this grant out, submit all financial reports by September 27, 2021. And that's it that I have to present. I'll take on any questions you guys may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guerrero, for your presentation. Mr. IT guy for the LB, can you just please leave up the PowerPoint for reference during all the questioning with Mr. Guerrero, and perhaps maybe Ms. Benavente, the Secretary of Labor, if there's any data questions, she would probably have to step up and sit with Mr. Guerrero to provide some assistance with regards to data questions. So we're in item number 5 for the agenda under discussions. Members, we are now open for questioning. If any of you have any questions, please raise your hand. I will recognize you. Recognize Mr. JP Sablan, Representative JP.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a question on the total awarded of 7,721,000, and we have made payouts already, Mr. Guerrero, of 5,128,000. What is the outlook of exhausting the whole entire 7 million from now and the pending payments moving forward?
In our application, that was our estimate of how much we're going to need for the first 3 weeks. I believe it was based on a number of roughly 8,000 or no more than 8,500 potential claimants. But as we see today, we've only paid out 6,008, and only expect maybe only a couple hundred that are sort of hanging at the tail end to complete. What that means then is we'll have an underrun, and the balance will have to then be deobligated. I'll anticipate another question that you might have to follow up on that, if I may, so we can just, everyone's time is precious these days. I've asked FEMA since we got awarded those 3 weeks, then if we had a balance, could we carry it over to a 4th week or 5th week? And the answer was no, because the program had closed already at December 27th. So unfortunately, we'll probably have to deallocate some funding.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield for now.
Recognize Representative Lee Pond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Gar.
Good morning.
On your program outlook, I'm looking at, you have 2 concerns actually. And the first one is the appeal. Do we have the numbers of how many has been appealed? Clients that have applied and did not qualify and have submitted an appeal? Do we have?
No, I don't have that number with me. I'm not even sure the Secretary of Labor has, but let me explain how the process in determining eligibility. So because we based it on whether an individual received at least $100 in a PUA payment for those weeks, the Department of Labor just went in and grabbed that data from the records that they had and pulled up anyone that may have received $100 then gets that $300 payment. There was no application. It was an automatic payment because they were already in the system. So if you didn't get it, there was no chance to apply. If you missed applying for PUA at the time, then you're not going to be eligible for this program because you did not meet that minimum receiving of $100 for that week from PUA. So no applications sort of denied. And it's just if someone comes up and say, hey, I have never received, but I did receive PUA. What I would like to do is in anticipation and in giving a deadline to the Department of Labor is to make an announcement to the community that this program was available for those 3 weeks. If you receive PUA, if you have not received anything and feel that you qualify, then they could call a number or come in and we'll entertain their request.
So you're saying there's no one has appealed the process of being denied?
Not to me.
Okay, and then on the other side, you mentioned about DOLE recovery payment. Is that enlighten me? Is that for additional that we're giving out to the individuals more than what is they're qualified for?
Correct. Yes. In all transparency, our goal in the beginning of this program's availability was to pay out as quickly as we could. We didn't want to hold up and be here today and not even have made any payments. We understood that the data that we pull from our system may have there's always a possibility, there's always a chance of having to go back and revisit. So we're doing internal audits now of every record, all of the 6,008 claimants that we paid to make sure that they qualified per the guidelines of this program. And yes, we are finding some individuals have been paid. We'll have to recover those payments from them. The decision was made to go ahead and release those payments, knowing that, yes, there might be some recovery of funds.
And one more, Madam Chair. I noticed that you just quantified the numbers and just put it in cost in entirely one number, but you did not break it down by senatorial district. I hope that you can share that information. How many applied in the first senatorial district? How many in the second and the third? I appreciate if we can get that detail. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here for this time.
Thank you, Representative Lee Pond. recognize Representative BJ Atto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Guerrero. Welcome to the House Chamber. Just in line with the questions from Rep. Saban and Rep. Lupon, I know that there's minimal qualifications for the LWA program, correct? Do you have to be a U.S. citizen or those kinds of, or is it anybody, CW?
So my understanding, I don't do anything with the PUA program, for example, but my understanding of that program is the eligibility may have changed between the first rounds back then and now in terms of citizenship. So whatever PUA was at that time is what would be followed. And so I believe at that time, for example, a CW worker would not have qualified.
Actually, you answered the next question, which is it's relying on the PUA program that you're running right now. Of the $6 million that have been exhausted, what's the, I guess maybe this is an unfair question, but what's the potential payback to the program that they will be collecting?
Well, 5 million only, 5.1 million only to date has been so less than what you stated, but and we got awarded 7.5 for benefits. The additional funds were for administrative costs. If we have only, but if that number is true that we only have 200, let's just say even 300 remaining claimants, and if they qualified for all 3 weeks, then that's all we would be expending in addition to what we've already drawn down, but then the rest would go back to FEMA.
So it's approximately less administrative costs, maybe
Over $1 million, a little over $1 million. And, yeah.
Thank you. Are you for now?
Thank you, Vice. I'm filling in as chair for our chair who has to step out. She'll be back in a few minutes. But are there any other questions from the members? I have a few questions. Mr. Guerrero, so could you confirm then that the total number of claimants that are that haven't received anything at all is that 100 to 150 number that you mentioned? They haven't received anything.
I cannot confirm. I think the data is they've requested for a last run of the data to ensure we're not leaving anyone out from their third party vendor that holds and manages the database.
Okay. And how much in admin costs then are estimated for this program? By the time it closes out, how much of that 7 million and change is going towards admin costs?
Our awarded admin costs were I believe our awarded admin costs were about $71,288, and we've only drawn down about a few thousand there. We have 7 staff, or I provided 7 staff to the Department of Labor to work on these on LWA, and seeing that our estimate for that was really only for a few months that FEMA awarded, and seeing that this program is only handling 3 weeks worth of payments, I think that we might not have spent all of that admin cost. Okay. But should we have an overrun, then it will be covered. Up to 5% admin cost is allowable. We only submitted like 0.93% or something was our estimate.
Okay, so what was the staffing proposal that's in in the state administrative plan for 4 LWA coordinators, and now you're saying there's 7 staff in all. What's in the plan is not actually what was paid out. There's this estimated 175, almost 176,000 in personnel costs alone. That's not what we're looking at the end.
Correct, because that was, that's based on an annual salary with benefits. But instead of these four, we just have really 7 sort of coordinators making less than that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just have a couple more questions, Madam Chair. I really wanted to understand better how people were being notified that they were eligible, and if they're being notified that they're not eligible for LWA. So I see in the admin plan that was submitted that everybody was supposed to receive a notice, right? A notice of eligibility. And what's not clear to me, because we're hearing from constituents who say like they didn't have to fill anything out and money just appeared in their bank accounts. In some cases, money disappeared after that and was taken back. And like how do people know, one, if they're among the 100 or 150 or so that are still pending, and then how would they know to appeal, at the end of it if they don't get anything at all?
Right. I think I would defer that question to the Department of Labor. I know in our early meetings to launch this program, we did discuss particular bullet or item number 4 on page 7 for them to send via electronic mail. Everyone who's in that database has an email that they would send a notice out that they will be receiving. I cannot confirm if that was actually done or completed.
And just a final comment, on the decision of the administration to only apply for 3 weeks of lost wages assistance. I know I've asked about this before, who made that call, and it especially now, it just seems like such a wasted opportunity, and people who really needed that money that could have gone right back into pockets of these families that assistance was intended for. And, I'm glad that at least 3 weeks is finally getting out to people, but still disappointed that we didn't at least, that the government didn't at least apply for these funds and only apply for these 3 weeks. And somebody made the decision not to even try at all for the remainder of the period of assistance. I think that's disappointing. And I hear that from our constituents who, they want to know why citizens around the country were able to get more than just 3 weeks of this help, right? And they're disappointed too. And I'd just like to voice that for the record. Thank you. I yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Tina. Any other members? Before I start to ask my own questions? If you have further questions, members, go ahead and raise your hand and I will recognize you. So just to follow up, Mr. Guerrero, with Representative Tina's question and concern from the citizens out there that are looking forward to receiving the LWA money. Earlier, you were put under oath to speak the truth and nothing but the truth before this committee. I would like to know who made the decision to only apply for 3 weeks and not 6 weeks.
So this program was made available again to every state and territory. The first or your application is only going to be approved for 3 weeks worth of based on your estimated number of claimants. And should you launch the program and start paying out benefits, then you apply for additional funding on a weekly basis. So if we had launched it from the get-go, by the 4th week, we would request for more funding if needed, based on the balance of what we spent out on the first 3 weeks. So every week they would have provided more funding. Of course, for us, that just meant every week we have to find a way to match that 25%. We could not pay out. The decision was made collectively between the Governor, Secretary of Finance, and myself, that we did not have the 25% local match. So if it was based on $7.5 million, then that's every 3 weeks, $2.5 million that we would have to pay out. as well. So the program, we submitted our cost share waiver since September. We only got a response, even after continuous follow-up, we only got a response on January 6th, saying that we received your letter on September 10th, and we're still under review, no decision. Only then to wait longer until March. I'm glad we did get it before the March 27th end of the program, so at least we got the waiver and we asked for an extension and we're able to pay out 3 weeks. So that was the nature of the program. You couldn't apply for more than 3 weeks at the forefront.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. I did some research on the matching of the program. I'm sure we all understand about the 75-25 ratio and the $100 that the state needs to come up with, correct? So I came across a document that I did some research, and if I may read it out, it says states, territories, and the District of Columbia were allowed to source the state-funded portion from the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Fund allocation. The total lost wages supplemental payment could not exceed $400. So my question is, did the CNMI receive the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Fund allocation?
There wasn't a separate allocation to match for this program, but as we know, the CNMI did receive CARES Act funding. I guess it was up to the state or territory if they wanted to use a portion of that to cover the $100 payment. That was already 6-7 months since the disaster declaration, and I would assume that funding for CARES Act was, I can't speak for the Department of Finance and what the status was at the time, but we were still anticipating battle against this, this disease. There was no end in sight. If there was, and we say, hey, we still have X amount of dollars in CARES Act funding, then let's pay LWA and match it with that. But since we still had till the end of December or the end of the year to expend CARES Act funding, we were saving it for our priority in keeping the community safe, whatever that means. So decision was made at the time. We would have been great to pay if we could.
My question is, was it ever brought up to the attention to the state responsible entity? You mentioned Secretary of Finance, whatever those priorities were at that time period, considering that these documents are in place and it is allowable, but for the state to use the CARES Act money to provide its matching allocation of $100. So I want to know from you whether this kind of conversation was ever brought up to the attention of the state fiscal entity to possibly use that as a match. Or was it just never mind, let's not talk about it, we'll figure it out. We don't know how much money we're gonna, have moving forward with the CARES Act money, and we'll figure it out later. If we have extra, then maybe we could use it. So I guess my interest here is that, was this ever been at the forefront as a conversation to bring it up to the attention of the state entity that this particular matching fund is allowable and is available for the Commonwealth to use, rather than to sit for a long time period and wait for the waiver to come in, which just came in not too long ago. That's my interest in this conversation for now in this question.
The answer is we were aware that it could be used, but it was not.
But it was not discussed, right? You guys were aware, but it was not.
I don't know. Can't recall exact conversations or discussions, but we understood that it's available, but we had, again, other competing priorities, and that was to keep the community safe. And at the time, we didn't pay out the LWA, obviously, at that time, so it probably fell down that list of priorities.
Thank you for your honesty. That's what I need to hear. I want to move along with the data. And you probably, if you can answer the question, that would be fantastic. I do know for a fact that during the onset of the pandemic, there was a lot of articles that came out in the newspaper where the data is just not correct. It just vacillates from here, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there. It was never an accurate number to begin with. And it seems like the 8,500 number is, well, like you say earlier, whatever we pull from the system is what it is, correct? And that number happens to be 8,500. To date, may I ask the question, what really is the true number for the PUA unique applications that were received by the CNMI Department of Labor from March 28, 2020 to December 19, 2020 for a total of 39 weeks? What is that number? What is the accurate data so that we could own in on this and figure this out correctly?
Pull-up program.
Thank you. And we can get that from you later on as you pull it from the Department of Labor.
I can get what's related to the instance for those 3 weeks. Any other data or for any period of time outside of that, I think should be requested directly to the department.
I'm going to ask more questions because unique numbers are very critical in order to analyze forward what will become the certified numbers for the LWA, okay? And so my next question would be, how many PUA unique applications were received and qualified for the benefits time period beginning March 28, 2020 to December 19, 2020, again, for a total of 39 weeks. The initial question is applications, all right? Those are not certified yet. They're not qualified. The follow-up question is how many of those applications within those 10 period were actually certified and qualified to receive PUA? That's for 39 weeks. Now, if you look at the time period of the 39 weeks, the LWA time period falls within that 39 weeks, correct?
Within, correct.
That's right.
Beginning July 27, so for the week ending August 1st, all the way through December 27, that was the period.
Right. That's exactly 39 weeks. Right. Because the additional continuation act is for an additional 11 weeks after December of 2020. So the LWA time period is still falling within the first 39 weeks, correct?
Within, correct.
Yes. And that's the number that we need to analyze. How many of those qualified and certified applications, individual applications, because remember, it's a weekly program. And that's another question that I have. It's weekly. It's not lump sum. It's not 6 weeks, 8 weeks combined. It's weekly, right? Including LWA. And that's the only way we could really figure out whether are we really looking at the true number of 8,500 or more individuals that could have qualified for the LWA program. And we under-requested the funding, correct? Most likely, because the data, again, was never correct to begin with. It's whatever the system was pulling at that time period. And that's the number that was being used to submit the application to FEMA to apply for the LWA money, correct?
We based it on estimated eligible individuals for those time periods based on a PUA number that was being paid out during that time period. And as it seems now, it's even less. So when we applied for this program too, it wasn't clear whether or not it had all of the same qualification requirements of PUA or any other of the unemployment programs that you see in the state admin plan there. That was, but of which we did not participate or don't have a program like that here. And so it was just based on estimate. The reason why we use an estimated number too is once you're approved for a grant application like this, then if we were to apply for the 4th week, the 5th week, it'll all be adjusted to at some point be based on almost actuals every week. You say, this is the number of claimants, this is how much I need.
And that is the question that I have. Because I'll be very honest, I did an Open Government Act back in February of 2020, all right? I did an Open Government Act on the PUA program. I have yet to date to receive those particular documentation that I requested. And we're not done with that. And this is the reason why I'm talking the data, because you said it, and it's written on the federal documents, that the state government can request for additional funding, right? On the subsequent weeks, as you discover your data moving forward. But we never did that, because we're stuck because the data is just not accurate, correct? It was never, was there ever really another weekly application for additional LWA money for those that potentially would have been qualified and certified by the Santa Maria Department, that or not?
Because we did not launch the program, we did not make, put together data for subsequent weeks. So, answer is, I guess, no, we did not.
Thank you for your honesty, Patrick. That's what we need to hear, that it was never done. Additionally, potentially, right? Are you aware of a federal document that also speaks about, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Section 262 of the Continued Assistance for Unemployment Workers Act of 2020 provides that states, territories, and the District of Columbia may waive overpayments under the Lost Wage Assistance Program when the individual is not at fault for the payment, and repayment to equity and good conscience. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that language on any particular document. But as I mentioned earlier, we did not want to delay this program any further than it already had at the time. As soon as we got a cost share waiver, we could afford to pay it out or not have to match it. We wanted to, and so any funds that may not be recoverable from individuals, we took that risk too. It's not going to be the same 2.5 million that we would have needed if we never got a cost share waiver just to pay those 3 weeks. But if there was any amount that's non-recoverable, the CNMI government was willing to, how do you say, sort of, like you said, make it assume the cost and make sure that we then have then return the funds back to FEMA, whatever was not.
And so that's the point that I'm trying to make. Is the state,
whatever was not.
and so that's the point that I'm trying to make. Is the state still pursuing those individuals for recovery of payments that it is not their fault? That's the point I'm trying to make. That it is not their fault. That's the point I'm trying to make. Giving you verbatim the exact language from the federal document. And similarly for PUA, it also speaks the same language, U.S. Department of Labor. These are the exact language of the federal documents. Individuals are not at fault. It's a systemic failure. And these people should not be penalized for the systemic failure, right? So I'm asking you the question today, is the state still pursuing or going after these individuals, not your office, but to do the job, to go after these individuals? Are they still pursuing these individuals, these families? I heard from an employee that has not even received from PUA, PUA 1, 2, 3, and not even LWA. So that's the question that I'm asking this morning. Is the state, this CNMI government, still pursuing going after in LWA? So that's the question that I'm asking this morning. Is the state, this CNMI government, still pursuing going after individuals to pay back money that they did not make a mistake on? That is the system failure. Are they still pursuing that?
We have not initiated any pursuit of funds. We have not started any recovery of funds. And as you see up there, I'm giving the Department of Labor till the end of this month. We'll look at a report on what that actually, will tell us to make decisions moving forward. I can't, no decision is on the table today or has been made.
I hope that, you get all your numbers correct. And my next question to you, because I do know, I ran the DUA program during Sodalord, and it is required by FEMA that you submit a weekly report on their money spent. And I want to ask you the question because I'm not sure that you report on their money spent. And I want to ask you the question because I'm not sure that you reporting it to FEMA or is it the Department of Labor reporting the numbers to FEMA? Be honest with the committee. Are the numbers accurate that are being submitted to FEMA on a weekly basis? Or there's always some corrections being made and, something's going on because all the newspapers, there's never really been an accuracy in terms of numbers being reported. And that's the truth because they're all public documents.
So I can only speak for this LWA program. We do have a report. So the weekly report, if we had been paying out weekly, was a strict requirement. I keep constant communication with FEMA because we only have the 3 weeks of the program that we're going to be paying out. They've then only asked for a quarter report to cover that first quarter period of which I'll be submitting to FEMA within this week. I'm actually in my meeting with the Department of Labor last Friday had asked them to address those 150 or 200 possible additional eligible individuals. And if we could make that payment out this week, then I would include that in our report to FEMA. I'll be more than happy to report back and update with that.
Additional 150 people, you said?
That's the number I got from the Department of Labor. I'm still waiting for them to verify with their third-party database or data management vendor.
$1,000?
Well, if they, I don't know if those individuals would qualify for 1 week.
Making assumptions today.
3 weeks.
Making assumptions today.
I would go with the highest number. Would qualify for 1 week.
Making assumptions today.
3 weeks.
Making assumptions today.
I would go with the highest number. So
it's 135.
Take that.
The newspaper said 8,500, right? The headline.
Yeah, 135,000 if they all receive $900.
And so, yeah, we're making assumptions now.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at the fund status report currently at $2.2 million, correct? You are potentially looking at a de-obligation of $2.1 million. You are potentially looking at a de-obligation of $2.1 million.
Correct. Correct. If that's the case.
We have a problem because honestly, this money can be utilized in the community and the ripple effects of this for BGRT taxes for businesses would benefit the Commonwealth tremendously. So we have a major issue about the inaccuracy of data. And for those weeks that are within the time period of LWA for potential qualifiers, right? For those individuals that already submitted their application, we're already, I believe Labor issued a notice that the third PUA rollout is beginning since yesterday for the applications, correct? I thought I saw something like that. So you would assume and think about that all of those time periods since the get-go of this program on the PUA, that all of those applications submitted since March, right? Should have gone through the vetting process, should have gone through the certification, the qualification for whatever weeks they qualify for. And also the denial letters. Just before I came into this session this morning, somebody was messaging me that they got a call from Labor that they're being denied the PUA because of their status. So that's what I'm saying, that if you look at the time period between March and December, we are already in 2021, right? we would think that all of those applications that mustered through the system since March of 2020 have gone through the vetting process, the review process, and determination could have been done already of who qualifies and who is certified to be recipients of LWA money, correct? Rather than, as we speak today, we're looking at $2.1 million of de-obligation to the federal government, where this benefit could benefit the people. What happened? Who's going to be responsible to tell the community out there that, oh, we can't get ourselves together here, and the data is so say that we can just return this money because moved, pretty much. I don't feel good about that. I'm not sure if any member of this committee feels good about that. Families are hurting out there, and they need this money. And I know you requested for a no-cost extension, and you have a closeout of September, June. So what guarantees can we as a committee, can the people of the Commonwealth get from your office, from the CNMI Department of Labor, that all of these issues and concerns regarding validation, certification of applications, and qualifying for the system can be addressed so that this money do not have to be returned back to FEMA, that it could benefit the families out there that truly, truly need it, that are affected by coronavirus? What can you tell this committee today? What would be the next urgent steps to take to address the issue, vet the applications through the process, because God forbid that we're going to be talking about this today, that, oh no, you're still trying to validate applications back in September 2020. That is not going to hold. What can you tell us today? And what can you face this people of the Commonwealth today, that this is the next step that you guys will be doing so that you do not de-obligate this money back to the federal government?
Every single dollar awarded under this program will be spent according to the program's guidance. If an eligible individual is identified, we will ensure that we make payments to them. It will be unfortunate, but they were based on estimates at the time, and we can only work on that. That's outside of my control with the data. But I hope in this next 30 days of verifying that there could be some remaining eligible individuals that we do find more than 200. I hope we find more than 200 and make those payments out to them. But if we don't, then that's just it was based on an estimate, and unfortunately we can't pay. Unfortunately, we can't pay it out under this program. That's all I can say.
Mr. Guerrero, the math says you need to find 2,486 individuals in order for you to not de-obligate a single time. It's not good enough to just sit there and talk about 150 in order for you to not de-obligate a single time. It's not good enough to just sit there and talk about 150 or maybe 200 individuals, Like I said, the time period since coronavirus hit was way back in March 2020. The first PUA period ended in December of 2020. Everybody would have mustered through the system, right, for certification and qualification on a weekly basis. The math today, as we speak, based on the fund status report, I just did a quick calculation. There has to be about 2,486 to be exact of individuals that could potentially qualify and push for this. There's no excuse. There's no more time to buy. There's no more telling the people it's the system issue, be patient with us. No, the patients have gone dry. The people are desperate. No more. Everyone accountable, including ourselves, the legislature. This is the reason why we're calling this meeting. And for as long as I chair this committee, I will continue to call in departments to address the issue for transparency and accountability and to speak honesty to the people. We have got to own up to the system failures of this government. We have got to hold people accountable, because why? We are dealing with the lives of people out there that are still not generating full-time work and are hoping for some kind of relief on a weekly basis on a weekly basis, and whose decision it is to make disbursements lumping weeks together as if we're doing. Do you know that we're penalizing them more than helping them? Because now they go have to line up to CUC and pay the penalty to get reconnected. Now they go have to line up to IT&E to get their phone connected, right? Now they have to pay the penalty, and now they have to go to the banks and line up and beg for their cars that were repossessed and pay all the penalty fees as well. Had we done the job every week and dispersed the checks every week, the people in the Commonwealth will not be. The federal government did not say lump sum benefit. Did it? I read all the documents. I searched the word lump sum. I couldn't find it. Everything says weekly. Weekly. Why is it that people are not being paid on a weekly basis? Why? Because why? It's a system failure. We can no longer buy the excuses anymore. We can't. We just have to work together. I have no other personal agenda in this committee other than to search the assistance for the people out there that are suffering, and to hear their cries and to communicate that to the agencies, the entities of this government that are responsible to make it happen. It's all of us. And this is the reason why we're meeting today. I am hopeful that you and Labor will work closely together again, flush the system out, look at those applications, qualify them through. I'm sure they're qualified, they've been certified. It's weekly, right? It's not you're reviewing 1 month out. It's weekly. We did it during solar. It's weekly. We review the income every week. Why is it that difficult to review that income every week for each person? It just doesn't reason at all. And that's the reason, as we do that and we certify them, we can obligate the money out and start disbursing these checks. For example, if you qualify people this week, right? Then next, paying for this week, paid out next week. That's the way the process works. It's not holding everybody over the weeks that you're certifying me and you're gonna think you're doing me a favor to pay me 10 weeks out and give me a 17,000 lump sum payment. That doesn't help me when my car's already repossessed, CUC already disconnected my power, IT&E already took away my phone. You know what I'm saying? We're actually penalizing the people rather than helping them when the federal government intended for the people to be helped. This is the frustration and the pain that I feel personally when people make contact with me, begging for help, begging. Literally, just 2 weeks ago, I called in the rental assistance program. How would you like a mother with a 5-year-old son to call you and say, Madam Senator, that similarly with LWA and PUA, Madam Senator, I have no money to put food on the table for my children. I still don't have a job because my company's still shut down. I'm still not generating 40 hours a week. Please help us. There's no personal agenda here. And I hope you guys understand that. We owe it to the people. We owe it to them. And I ask you sincerely to please work, get the data correct, get those applications out, remainder of $2 million under LWA. Any further questions, members? Recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at this state administrative agency packet. I see that there are 4 staffs on here. I see that there are 4 staffs on here. How long is the program for again? 6 months? LWA? It would have been for about 5 months. And so I'm seeing a lot of money here for staffers. $46,751.40. What is that? How does that break down? Is that for the whole 5 months? Annual. That's an annual salary with benefits. So probably at 46 is probably 40,000 salary. At 43 is probably around 37, based on an hourly rate, I guess, established And these are the temporary corrections. Yes. Wow, I'd like a chart like that. Thank you.
Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and well stated. I think you honed in on a really critical problem that we are facing, which is because of the lack of accurate data, there are people that may have been deemed ineligible for PUA who are actually eligible and are missing out now, not only on PUA, but also on LWA, right? And then on the flip side, there are people who have received, who were perhaps not eligible and who received money erroneously from the LWA program, who may have already spent the money and now they are facing the possibility of CNMI labor, this government coming after them to pay money back that was given to them through no fault of their own, and that they have already used by now to cover essential needs. That makes it quite clear that this government does have the authority to waive collection on overpayments that have been made to people that as a result of the government's own mistakes, the government's own failures. And I'd like to ask you, Mr. Guerrero, a commitment that you will recommend that this government exercise that authority and not unfairly penalize people any further than they already have for overpayments that have been made that were not their own mistakes.
I don't think that's a sole decision for myself to make. We want this community to be able to benefit from this program. We're happy to be paying out. We understand the effect it has on their lives and the economy as a whole. If I was the recipient who erroneously received only to find out later, I would hope that I myself am pardoned. I guess that mistake that I did only to find out later, I would hope that I myself am pardoned. I guess that mistake that I did not make. But that's not a sole decision, and
I understand. But the question is, would you recommend as the GAR?
That it would be safe to say that would be my recommendation. I'd like to see the numbers, but it's something that I would lean towards.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And then just to follow up on the chair lady's request of you that you flesh out the data and work really closely with labor to make sure, absolutely sure, that everybody who is eligible could be certified, because it could potentially be a lot more than 150 people, right? And so can you say on the record today that you will work with labor to flesh out this data and make sure that everybody who is eligible gets as much of this LWA money that they could possibly get before the program closes out?
That's an easy commitment.
Thank you. I yield, Madam Chair.
Members, any further questions? Short recess. Mr. Guerrero, you're good to go.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you.